Okay, so the session is now being recorded. So thanks everybody for joining us today. It's a special Take 10 today on the topic of social media and mental health. You probably all saw the email I sent out, and I'd just like to take a moment to welcome William Gill from Portage College. And thanks so much for joining us, William. And I'm going to let him take it away.
Okay, thank you very much, Jillian. Hope everybody can hear me all right. Thanks for joining us today. And just to briefly go over what we're going to be talking about, obviously it's social media and mental health. And there's a lot of information out there in terms of the negative impact of social media on mental health. And it's definitely a real thing. And we're going to touch on that very briefly. But what I wanted to focus on a little bit more today was how to kind of control that social media use and presence and use it in a positive way for our mental health. So I'm going to start advancing the slides, and hopefully there's not too much of a lag between what I'm doing and what everybody is seeing. So just in introduction, and kind of as I mentioned before, um, social media it's a part of our lives. It's here, like it or not, it is a presence, and we might as well learn and use it to our advantage. Like most things in our lives, regardless of what it is, social media is not inherently bad, right? It's neither good nor bad, but when it's used in excess, it can create some real problems, and that's where we want to try to spin things and help maybe generate some ideas today on how to use it more positively. Um, so it can be a positive tool if it's used moderately and if it's used with other types of communication. We're going to get into that in a little bit. So just to quickly review, um, before we get into kind of the negative side of it, to set that up, what I'd like you to do is to think about your social media presence a little bit. And I have some questions here on the screen, but I'm not going to ask anybody to answer these questions live. It's more to think about and um, for your own use. So if you just take a second and think for a minute, how many social media platforms can you name? Off the top of my head, I can think of 5 or 6. And if I put some more thought into it, I'm sure I could come up with some more, right? But uh, Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Kick, uh, that's 5 right there, right? Without even breaking a sweat. One of the ones that I find really interesting, and I don't include it usually until I really think about it, is YouTube. Because we watch videos on YouTube, but because of the comment nature of YouTube and the communication nature, it is a social media platform. So keep that in mind. As you ask yourself, how many social media accounts do you have? Out of the ones that you can name, how many accounts do you have, and how often do you access them? How often you access them can be a real hint and can help to kind of guide maybe what you might need to do to make your social media use more positive, depending on how much that is. And the other part of that is how does it make you feel when you're using social media, either during or after? And because social media can create a variety of feelings in us, and we're going to get into that here right away. So we're going to look really quickly at the negative effects of social media. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this because I think this gets a lot of press and most people are reasonably familiar with it. If you're not, it'll be a quick refresher, and I encourage you to kind of look into it on your own. But in a nutshell, there's not a lot of long-term research on social media yet, but what studies are out there tend to show us that there's an increased risk of depression, anxiety, loneliness, self-harm, and even suicidal thoughts. So those are, clear and present dangers that we should be mindful of. Um, to expand on that a little bit, some of the things that can happen with excessive social media use is inadequate thoughts about life or appearance, because what we see on social media is set up, right? It's not an accurate depiction of everyday life, right? It's little snippets, and a lot of times it's not, you know, quite the way that it seems. Um, FOMO is feelings of missing out and looking at other people's stuff on social media and feeling like there's something missing in your own life. Isolation, depression, anxiety, cyberbullying, and self-absorption are all kind of potential negatives. Now, um, this does not mean that you know, whenever you use social media, these are going to happen, but it is potential risks, and it's good to be aware of. But I don't want to spend a lot of time there today. What I want to spend more time on is how to maybe help with more of the positives, because in our current situation, yes, we are in the midst of dealing kind of with an ever-changing pandemic, and technology and social media is going to be an important way to kind of keep in touch with other people. So we might as well use it in a positive way. To look at the positives real quick, it can help us to stay up to date with family and friends. It can help us to find new friends or communities, kind of interests that are similar to ours. Help us join and promote worthwhile causes and seek support in other than in-person ways, and it can be a vital link in this time of physical distancing. It can also help us to find social connections if we live in remote areas. Um, I know that's definitely a factor that we work with quite a bit at Portage College, and I would expect that it's the same for some students with Northern Lakes. It can help us to find an outlet for our creativity. Yes, I'm seeing the comments as we're going here, so uh, definitely with some then for sure. An outlet for the creativity, absolutely, and self-expression, and to discover with care sources of valuable information. Whenever you're getting information off the internet, that always comes with a big kind of warning label to uh, not believe everything on the internet and to, you know, do your research properly. But those are the positives of it. And how do we get to those positives? How do we, you know, use our social media to accentuate those positives instead of the negatives? The first one is kind of links back to what we were talking about at the beginning with moderation, and it applies to many things, including social media. Moderation, reduce your time online. Um, this can be a big factor, and some ways to do that are to use an app to track how long you're on. Sometimes it's surprising how much we're on. Turn off your phone at certain times of day. Don't take your phone to bed. That's a big one. The first reaction I get from a lot of people when we have that conversation is, but it's my alarm clock. Well, they've made alarm clocks before they made cell phones, so I'm sure we can figure something out for that so that you don't have to take your phone to bed. Disabling social media notifications at night if you have a sleep kind of setup on your phone. I know mine does it. Silences all notifications for a time that you can set. Limit checks and try removing some of the social media apps on your phone. I know for myself, it's amazing how much it can kind of sneak up on you, and you're not even aware of it. And I did this a few times just to keep my own social media use in check and kind of log how often I checked, you know, Facebook or something like that. And it surprised me how often I did until I was aware of it and kind of making a conscious effort to say, okay, let's tone this down a little bit. And as an example, I try to keep my checking Facebook to 3 times a day. So that's just something that I've found helpful with this. Let's look at a few other tips other than the moderation and kind of limiting time. Definitely, I agree with the comment that so wishing that we were kind of back to the old landlines instead of cell phones for everything. Um, some more positives, though, to help you to accentuate those positives is to change the focus. Um, don't use it as a substitute for real life, but use it as a way of keeping in touch with real people in your life. Um, people that you already have a connection with, and just because of the circumstances right now may not be able to touch base with in person as much. Focusing on positive interactions with social media is a huge, huge one. And as I kind of alluded to with doing your research, this one fits too. Don't let Facebook be your whole source of news. Um, we won't get into what's fake news and what's not, but definitely try to get my news in other places rather than Facebook. A way to make it more positive as well is to try to incorporate some humor into it. Some finding positive, funny things to brighten up your day, whether that's cat videos or sharing funny memes. Um, just changing the focus of how we use it can change how we think about it, how we feel about it, and how our body responds to that. So just like we would, change our thinking and feeling about other things, we can do the same with social media and help influence that. So the last couple, and this kind of fits with our previous slide in terms of expressing gratitude. This is a great way to use social media to kind of, to prop up somebody else, to to show that you're grateful for the things that we have going on in our lives and different aspects. And that changes how we think about things, how our outlook is, and what's happening internally as well. Because when we express gratitude and kindness towards other, it changes our brain chemistry. We get some of those feel good hormones happening, which can definitely change our mood in a positive way, which is very, very good for our mental health. Posting positive thoughts and encouragement to others fits with that, propping them up. You know how you feel when somebody says, "Hey, congratulations, you did a fantastic job," or "You're doing awesome." And doing that for others is makes us feel almost as good as those receiving it. So definitely find ways to incorporate that into your social media day. And last on this slide is to kind of target your social media interaction towards things that are of interest to you, instead of just that kind of general, scrolling through Facebook kind of a thing. But to join interest groups that you have an interest in, and then you have conversations about things that interest you. So whether that's some kind of craft or arts, or for me it's fishing. So I am on a fishing group on Facebook, and I find that enjoyable to check and converse with some people at times on that. But it might be quilting, it could be almost anything. Cooking, absolutely, definitely. Post a recipe on Facebook and you'll have lots of responses of people telling you how to do it differently. I'm kidding. There's lots of great ways to share those ideas and things. And although that might be true, that kind of is a good example of how we can change our use of social media and how we're using it, right? So instead of putting out a comment of critiquing somebody's recipe, we'll just use that as an example, and how they might do it better, is just keep the focus on being positive and saying, "Hey, thanks for the great idea. That's a fantastic looking recipe. I'm going to try that this weekend," or whatever that might be. So that gives some ways to maybe start spinning some of those things that do happen on social media. Let's flip to the next slide here. Get a little, okay. That runs through our positives, and I'm going to back up just so we can go through those again in summary quickly. But these links, which Jillian has put up in the chat, are meant to give you some further reading. It gives you a pretty balanced approach. The first one is an article on social media and mental health, and it's good. It kind of presents positives and negatives. The second one takes a look more at the negative side. If you're not familiar with the negatives of excessive social media use, that one is a pretty good article. And the last one is from Yale Harvard, sorry. And it's some interesting research in the positives of social media use. And there are some positives if we use it correctly. So just in summary here, I'm just going to flip back a couple of slides and we're just going to run through these real fast. And I know it's a ton of information to get thrown at you in a matter of about 10 minutes. So we'll give a chance for questions and, that kind of stuff. But very, very quickly, ways to make it more positive are to reduce your time online. So to try to use more moderation, to change your focus, to put positive out there to receive positive back, to try to inject some humor into it and laugh. Laughing every day is so important. Expressing gratitude and posting positive thoughts really stimulate those feelings of well-being and can help us out on a biology level, right? And get those feel-good hormones going. And to join groups based on our interests, so you have some conversations and people that to talk about things that really do interest you. And those are the quick tips we have for today to make social media a much more positive presence in your life. I haven't been checking my watch, and I probably should have been because I know it's only a minute session. Do we have time for a few questions, Jillian, or are we? Am I getting the hook here right away?
No, you can take time for questions, and then just for anybody who's watching the recording, and for you guys who are still here, just after Will's done with his questions, I have a quick slide just to end the presentation with that secret word for you guys to enter for the draw.
Right. Yes, the secret word. Yeah, so I guess if we do have a minute, if anybody does have any questions or even comments to make, about their own social media use, or if you have done something that has been successful in helping you change your social media use, that's always great to share with others and might kickstart an idea for somebody else. So kind of open up the floor to the participants for a minute here. Definitely teens and social media is a whole kind of area of itself. And one of the things I was thinking about with this that I didn't include really just for time, but another thing to be aware of for social media is to be a good role model of it for our teens, right? And to, limit ourselves and, maybe limit our teens too. It's part of that tricky balance of being a parent, and kind of making those tough decisions sometimes with limiting resources like the internet or, time on social media. My kids, I have kids from mid-20s down to mid-teens, and all of them, until they turned 18, it was a rule in our house that I had their logins and that I was friends with them on whatever social media that they were on. So whether it's Facebook or Snapchat or whatever. And I reinforced with them that I didn't do it just to stalk them or to, be kind of constantly over their shoulder, but as a safety thing. And so that I had access to their social media if need be. And if I, sometimes that presence of knowing that somebody is watching what you're saying takes some of that stuff that happens because people think they're anonymous out of the picture, right? So, but you got to find a way to make that work for yourself and for your own. Yeah, so we have Rhonda here saying that she has limited time, right? Um, Absolutely. Yeah, half an hour a day, and you have the right to see what she's doing. Great.
Okay, while people are thinking, I'm gonna just put that slide up if you guys are okay with that. But feel free to keep posting comments, asking questions, whatever. All right, and just so you guys know, for those of you who are here, the draw for this prize is March 11th, so that's Thursday, so you have a couple of days, and you just need to email email address counseling@northernlakescollege.ca, and the subject line has the word media in it. So that's our super secret word, is media. All right, and for those of you watching the recording, you have the same thing. You can email us and we draw one from the live session, one from the recorded session. And then again, as always, if you have any questions about today's topic, reach out to the counseling team. If we don't know the answer, we can ask Will the answer if it's a question about social media, because you're not alone and we're here to help you. So just keep in mind that we're available to you guys whenever you need us. So don't be afraid to contact us. Oh yeah, I always like those like limits, the in-house rules. I do like a rule in our house where we have like an hour on a particular weekend day where nobody can use their cell phone.
Yeah. Yeah, no phones at the table is definitely a rule in our house as well. Um, you bet.
All right, so I'm going to stop the recording just for recording's sake, but feel free, you guys, if you have more questions or comments, feel free to ask.